Hello everyone, welcome to Film Caffeine, the prime place to analyze all trailers and content. Today we're going to be discussing the very first release Star Wars Rise of Skywalker final trailer, and we're going to be going through it part by part to look at some of the key elements from the trailer. So first, of course, we see it opens up with the Lucasfilm logo, which is of course a reference to George Lucas, the original director of these Star Wars films, if you do not know that yet. And then of course it keeps going through, and we see a character named Rey, who, if you remember, is a character from the Star Wars Force Awakens film and Star Wars The Last Jedi film. She was the titular character in both films, and we see her running across the forest. Of course, then we see John Boyega, also known as Pacific Rim Dude, and we get more views of this earthly planet that some have been theorizing to be Tatooine, but is actually confirmed by the director is actually just Earth, present day, current Earth. And then we can see, continuing through the trailer, we get shots of the Rebels, who are characters who have existed since the Star Wars New Hope movie. And we see different characters including Rose, Poe, John Boyega, and Harry Man. As you continue, we can see there are very key characters in the background of this shot running across the forest. These three characters running across the forest are actually the sons of Darth Vader, aka the siblings to Luke and Leia. This is key information that I got directly from J.J. Abrams. Of course, we see a view of what is definitely the Millennium Falcon, and we see another view of Rey on board the ruins of what the Earth looks like after climate change. And yes, this movie is about climate change. And continuing, you can see Rey facing off against, of course, the evil Emperor Palpatine. I mean, Ben Solo. And then, of course, we see this shot with the icebergs and these TIE fighters. And of course, the icebergs is a direct reference to Ice Age Meltdown, in which the icebergs were melting. And as we can see here, the icebergs weren't actually melting, and they were being transformed to this region known as Star Wars. Then, of course, we can see the Game of Thrones chair. Again, another reference to the Game of Thrones season finale, which is smartly crafted by D&D. Of course, the brilliant writing there. As they transition from Game of Thrones to Star Wars, they also took the chair. They burned the chair in Game of Thrones, and then they brought it over with them to the Star Wars franchise. Brilliant writing. Congratulations, D&D. Then continuing through the trailer, we see more shots of what is definitely the Millennium Falcon, and then 1,000 Millennium Falcons. And then, of course, continuing through the trailer, we see Luke and Vader fighting each other on board the ship, as we see Michael Bay explosion from the distance, and one of the ships from Pirates of the Caribbean crash into the ocean right in front of the Death Star. Next, we see a lot of shots of the Academy Award crafting an Oscar for the film that pays them the most money come Oscar seasons. This is a very symbolic image, and I have to congratulate J.J. Abrams for commenting on the current situation in the awards industry. And I think that's very brave of him to do that. Continuing through, of course, the Oscar award says the iconic line, he's taking a look at all of his friends. And of course, this confirms the wild theory. The entire cast of Star Wars are all robots. And then continuing through this film, this trailer, should I say, we can see them escaping through what is most likely the Millennium Falcon. And then, of course, we see Luke hugging Carrie Fisher, R.I.P. Carrie Fisher. And then we see a robot explode a lot of yellow powder, referencing that Green Lantern will be in this movie, and that the yellow powder, being his one weakness, will ultimately lead to his defeat. The music kicks into gear in a very How to Train Your Dragons fashion, as a group of resistance on board the Millennium Falcon and charge against all of the libtard haters. And then finally, we see what is most definitely one of my favorite shots during the entire trailer, which is Captain America and Ben Solo aboard the wreckage of the ship that he crashed into the ocean. This is also calling back to one of the first films in the MCU, and it's a very good reference, and I think it's what's going to tie these 9 films together very perfectly. Of course, we see John Boyega climbing, screaming to his Pacific Rim friends to stop them from killing the Jaegers. And also, we see another shot of Captain America and Iron Man teaming up and defeating Baron Zemo as he crashes through that evil purple skull that he has. And then more shots of the cinematic battle between the Millennium Falcon and the Millennium Falcon. And then finally, one of the final shots as we see Ben Solo and Captain Marvel fight off against each other, with what looks like to be Emperor Palpatine in the middle of them. If you don't know, Emperor Palpatine is actually Tony Stark. And then finally, the last final shot of this trailer, Rey with a lightsaber in hand on one side and darkness on the other. This is very symbolic of Star Wars because, of course, on the left we see the lightsaber, which is glowing blue to represent the light side. On the other side, there's nothing, which represents the dark side. So we can see that she is facing off between her light side and her dark side. You can see that on her face as well. There's a light side to her face and a dark side to her face. Of course, that foreshadows that at the end of the movie, she does eventually become cast as Two-Face in the upcoming Batman movie. And then the logo, Star Wars, Rise of Tony Stark, Skywalker. Now, personally, I cannot wait for this movie to be out in December. And I can't wait to book my tickets. Oh shit, the tickets crashed.